dark on the other side. I stood up and traced the line of sight. The hole aligned perfectly with where my head rested on my pillow. My bed, my side, a direct line. I felt weird. I felt a kind of cold clarity. I called the police again, different officers this time. I showed them the hole, showed them the alignment. They took it seriously, and the language changed quickly to intent. A hole could be anything. A hole could be old. A hole could be accidental. They went next door and checked behind a framed picture on the shared wall. Behind it was the other end of the hole, clean and hidden. The neighbor claimed he'd hung the frame and didn't know about the hole. He delivered that line too smoothly, the same polite smile, like we were discussing a parking issue, not a drilled line into my bedroom. The officers couldn't arrest him based on that alone. They just filed a report, suggested documentation, and suggested I call again if anything escalated. It already had. It just wasn't dramatic enough to fit a headline. That night, I didn't sleep in that bedroom. I patched the hole, installed a camera in the hallway, rearranged the bed so my head wasn't against any shared wall, but none of it fixed the feeling. I confronted him in the driveway the next day. "If you've got an explanation, now's the time," I said. He laughed. "You're making a big deal out of nothing." A week later, he was gone. No goodbye. No moving truck, I noticed. Just a vacant unit and a landlord claiming it had been planned. Maybe it had. Maybe it hadn't. I've walked into shootings, overdoses, domestic violence scenes. I've seen what chaos looks like when it's loud. The problem this time is that it wasn't loud. It was quiet, and it lived inside a wall I trusted. I don't sleep with my head against a shared wall anymore. I've worked emergencies my whole adult life. I didn't expect the most disturbing thing to be a dime-sized hole pointed at my bed. That was 2020, middle of the chaos. Buying that modest place felt like the first stable decision I'd made in months. 2 bedrooms, small kitchen, tiny yard with an overgrown lilac bush. Nothing special, but it was mine, and for me it was really special. I'm a high school teacher. I don't default to paranoia. If something seems off, my instinct is to search for the normal explanation first. That instinct almost cost me. It started small, so small I didn't even label it as suspicious. I'd come home and notice the pantry door slightly ajar when I was sure I'd shut it. A cereal box turned a different direction. The peanut butter jar moved from the front of the shelf to the back. Nothing stolen, but a framed photo in the hallway would be tilted a few degrees. A kitchen chair pulled out just a bit farther than I remembered. All things that could have been me. Teaching during 2020 meant constant mental whiplash. Hybrid classes, tech issues, kids in quarantine. My brain felt overused and under-rested. It was easy to believe I'd just forgotten. Then one morning, I drove halfway down my street before something nagged at me. I turned around, went back, and checked the front door. The deadbolt wasn't thrown. I always locked it. I had built the habit because of a stupid handle trick on the front door. Lift, turn, double check. Every time. I stood there staring at the lock, telling myself I must have rushed. I had been running late, but it stuck with me. After that, I started doing something that felt ridiculous. I took photos of my house before leaving for work. Not every inch, just quick snapshots. Pantry shelves, living room, the front door with the deadbolt secured. It felt dramatic, like I was building a case against my own forgetfulness. I'd check them at the end of the day and see the differences. The chips moved. The photo frame straightened when I'd left it crooked. The blanket folded differently. Nothing big, but consistent. The kind of consistent that doesn't happen by accident. Still, I kept trying to rationalize it. Stress, fatigue, overthinking. I bought a simple door sensor alarm. Nothing fancy, just something that would chirp if the door opened. For a few weeks, everything seemed quiet. The house settled back into routine. Then I came home early one Thursday. A class was canceled last minute, and instead of staying at school grading essays, I decided to work from home. It was mid-afternoon, broad daylight. When I pulled into my driveway, nothing looked off. There were no strange vehicles, no open windows, just my quiet little street. I unlocked the front door, lifting the handle like always, and stepped inside. The air smelled normal, coffee and laundry detergent. For a second, I almost laughed at myself. You've been building ghosts out of nothing. Then I heard it, the sound of a key turning. The front door. I turned as the knob moved. The deadbolt clicked and the door swung inward. A man stepped inside like he was returning from checking the mail. Late 40s, maybe. Work boots, hoodie, baseball cap. No hesitation in his movement. He saw me and paused like he was irritated. "What are you doing?" I asked. My voice came out calm, controlled, like I was correcting a student. He blinked once and said, "I forgot something from years ago." "This is my house," I said. "I used to live here. That doesn't mean you can walk in." "How did you get in?" I asked. "I still had a key." That was the moment everything lined up. The pantry, the pictures, the deadbolt. No signs of a break-in, no broken glass, just access. I stepped back, keeping distance between us. "Get out." He didn't argue, didn't apologize. He simply backed out through the door and walked down the steps like I'd inconvenienced him by being home. I locked the door and called the police. They arrived, took notes, asked what he looked like, asked if anything was missing. I explained the subtle changes I'd documented, showed them the photos. One of the officers asked a question that stopped me cold. "Did you rekey the locks when you moved in?" I hadn't. I assumed it had been done. Assumed it was standard. The next day, a locksmith confirmed the lock was builder grade and likely unchanged since installation. No break-in had ever occurred. My house had simply remained accessible. After that, I replaced every lock, installed cameras, motion lights, a reinforced strike plate. I turned my modest little house into something closer to a checkpoint. But the psychological shift had already happened. Before, the house felt like mine. After, it felt borrowed. I stayed another year. I triple-checked locks every night. The door sensor chirp became both comfort and reminder. Sometimes I'd lie awake and replay the way he'd stepped inside, just entering. He behaved like I was the one trespassing. The scariest thing wasn't a burglar. It was someone walking into my house like I was the temporary guest. The first thing I liked about the house in Indianapolis was how quiet it was. No upstairs neighbors, no hallway footsteps. At night, you could hear the refrigerator click on and the HVAC cycle. And that was it. After years of apartments and business travel, that kind of silence felt earned. We moved in early 2020. 2 kids and a dog. One detail I noticed right away: the attic access was in the hallway ceiling between the bedrooms, with a pull-down ladder. The attic vent faced the side yard, the part of the property you barely see unless you're taking trash out at night. I liked that it wasn't visible from the street. It felt tucked away. For a while, the house delivered exactly what it promised. Then one night, long after everyone was asleep, I heard footsteps. Above us. Footsteps, like someone walking. I sat up in bed and listened. My wife slept through it. The kids didn't stir. The dog didn't bark, which honestly unsettled me more than the noise. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. Then it stopped. Clean stop. There was no exit sound, just silence. The next morning, I did what everyone does now. I Googled it. Every forum said the same thing. Animals, raccoons, squirrels. Totally normal. So I told myself it was animals. It didn't happen every night. That helped. Once a week, sometimes 2 weeks of nothing. Then back again. But it was always late, after the house had gone completely still. If the TV was on downstairs, nothing. If the dishwasher was running, nothing. If someone was up moving around, nothing. But on nights when everything was quiet, that's when it would start. I pulled the attic ladder down one Saturday afternoon and went up with a flashlight. I expected droppings, torn insulation, something obvious, but I found nothing. The insulation was fluffy and undisturbed. The attic smelled like dry wood and old air. I stayed up there longer than I needed to, trying to make the noise make sense. I came down feeling foolish for even checking.